play to win.
All right. Okay, thank you. All right. What are you trying to say here? Well, this has been a treat. I have really enjoyed my lunch conversation here, and I think I might have loaned some good luck over here. We were triumphant. I'm also very pleased to be here with a lot of my Vermont staff. I know every member in Congress says they have the best staff, but I really do. They are terrific advocates for all of you. And what I know is that when Vermonters call the office here in Vermont, they are going to be very well taken care of. And so if the staff could just stand up, just so everybody can put faces there. Yes. And so the other thing that the Vermont staff does for me, which is really important, is always translating Vermont to folks in DC. And Sarah, I just want to give a shout out to Sarah. Sarah's from, I'm doing it, from the Woodstock area, and she works in my DC office. And so one of the things I know that she had to deal with a lot were people in the DC office saying, it feels like everyone in Vermont knows each other and that you're like 2 degrees of separation. And she was like, yeah, that's real. That's real. So very happy to be here. It is always so important for me when I'm home in Vermont to be able to sit with Vermonters, hear from all of you what's on your mind, get your questions answered, but also just be together sharing a meal. And I was telling the pianist how nice it was to have the music, because many of us are feeling so heavy right now. There's a lot that is weighing us down, concerns about geopolitical things in the Middle East, concern about the election, all kinds of things that are giving us anxiety. And I do think if we had more time to sit together on Capitol Hill and share a meal and listen to music and remind each other that we're all human, we would be in a better place. So I wanted to just start by saying, for those of you who are meeting me for the first time, I live in Brattleboro, so just down 91. I have 2 kids. My daughter is 13, and my son was going to be 16 on Friday. Yeah, and he's amazing. He's amazing. When I walk into the door on Friday nights, he often says something along the lines of, "Let's talk about your votes, Mom." It's keeping me honest. And I miss this. There has been so much dysfunction, which I know you've all heard about on the news in Congress for years, but in earnest since January. I hope that wasn't because I was sworn in, but it is difficult for me to be away from Vermont so much. So we usually have 2 or 3 weeks on in DC, and then we get a week home to work in the district. But we haven't had that for 10 weeks. And nobody in Congress can remember the last time we've been in this situation. And so that speaks to the level of dysfunction that we've been dealing with. And, we did just pass a continuing resolution, which was important to keep the government open, because that is something that I know I hear a lot about from seniors in particular. Because if government isn't funded, programs that you rely on will not be funded. And so that is, it's infuriating to me that we keep coming up to the edge of this cliff. It doesn't have to be this way. You rely on us as representatives to keep government open. That's like the minimum, right? It's like keep government open, fund government, make sure that Americans are taken care of. And it is so agonizing for me every time we come right up to the edge of worrying about, is Social Security going to be funded, Medicare, Medicaid, all of these programs that should not be up for the chopping block. And we have funded government through for some parts of government, it's been funded into January, for others into February. And we're going to once again then be in a situation of trying to actually pass a budget. And I sit on, sorry, I shouldn't probably touch that. I sit on the Budget Committee and I serve on the Judiciary Committee, and we still haven't passed a budget. And we're heading into the new year. Again, dysfunction, not acceptable by any stretch. And it is unfortunate right now, and it's really important for me not to be overtly partisan when I'm out talking to Vermonters, because what Vermonters want, they want me to work with anyone who is working with me in good faith. And that is who I am, that's who I was in the state Senate, that's who I am in Congress. What has been increasingly difficult is to find those folks who are acting in good faith. And some of that is that extremists are more interested in getting us to hate each other. And by us, I mean not just members of Congress, but Americans, fanning the flames of fear and anger and distrust. And that's not good for any of us. And it's certainly not good for our federal government when we have really important work to do to make sure that people have the funding that they need to live, not just on the margins, but a life that you can thrive in and feel secure. The other thing I wanted to mention is one of the first questions I got at this table, which I love, it's always like, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, are some of them as mean as they seem? Like, yes! Yes, they are. But they are not the majority. And unfortunately, they get a lot of attention on the news. And they get a lot of attention after we come off the floor. They're following the people that I refer to as the conflict entrepreneurs. That's what they want to do. Stir it up, stir it up, stir it up, repeat. And that's not actually a real indication of what the work is that's happening day in and day out in committee and with more reasonable people. And so I always say, I play on the bipartisan women's softball team, and it is bipartisan and bicameral. So senators and House members, Republicans and Democrats. And the policy is, when you're on the ball field, you don't talk policy. You don't talk politics. You get to know each other as people. Who are your family members? What's your district like at home? That doesn't happen enough. And so it makes it easy to demonize each other. And I think that is what is tearing this country apart, is this demonizing of each other, dehumanizing each other. And that is something that I don't want to give into. And I'm fighting hard every day not to. And I know my team is right there with me. The other thing I wanted to mention today before, I'm going to open it up to questions, because I think questions, but also comments. Like, this is your time to tell me directly what's on your minds. When I ran for Congress, it really didn't matter what community I was in Vermont. The thing that rose to the top that was the most concerning for voters was the health of the democracy and fears that we were coming apart at the seams. And I share those fears. I still do, because there are some members right now in Congress who don't believe in the rule of law. And you can tell by what they say in their own words in committee and on the floor of the House. That's very concerning to me. And it has been my work since I've been there since last January of figuring out, how do you embolden the voices of people who are trying desperately to do the right thing, but also are living in fear of being on the receiving end, frankly, of a mob. And so I try to give my colleagues a lot of grace, even when we disagree on things, especially the ones that I know outside of the arena. And we cannot take our eyes off the ball. Democracy is still very much in a fragile state right now. And whether you are a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, whether you are an independent, whether you're a Vermonter who doesn't actually vote because you're so disgusted by the whole thing, I want to just put a plug in for, we have to get back to being a country that believes in the rule of law, believes in the Constitution, and that stands up for each other as Americans and stops demonizing each other. I don't expect people to agree with me on everything, but I do expect people to treat me with humanity, and I then have to extend that same humanity to others. So the things that I'm very worried about as it relates to seniors in Vermont, a lot of the things that non-seniors are worried about too, which is we have a terrible housing crisis. We have a mental health crisis. We have real concerns long-term about making sure that Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare are fully funded. And I think some of my colleagues have forgotten why they serve, and that is to make life better for constituents. And we can have different definitions of what that looks like. We can disagree on policy, but we should be there every day remembering why we're there. And so I think I'll leave it at that for right now, so we have lots of time for questions and comments. But I want you to know I am honored every single time I walk in that building. I am the child of an immigrant and a working class mom. I never imagined that I would be in Congress. And so I don't ever take it for granted. And I want you to know that because I'm gonna do things that may frustrate you. I'm gonna say things maybe in not the right way or vote on something that you wouldn't vote that exact way, but I hope that what you see in me is someone who is desperately trying to do a good job, and that means listening deeply, gathering a lot of information from a lot of different voices, and every single day trying to do what I think is in the best interest of all of you. So let's open it up. What's on your minds? And I've got lots of staff here to help me answer specific questions as well. Yes?
I'd just like to know that my Social Security and Medicare is safe.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Of course.
Because we really depend on it.
Absolutely. And it's, you know, there has been much made of the argument that long-term, Social Security isn't going to be solvent, or Medicare. These are choices about how we spend money. And so, I'm just going to continue to say that to my colleagues on the Budget Committee who wring their hands about this when I know, so I'll just give you one example. We haven't had an audit of the Pentagon in a very, very long time. Now, I am the child of someone who served in the military. I understand the importance for having a strong military to defend us. And also, it should not be the only part of government that never gets audited, and we don't know what military contracts are making for the supplies. It should be transparent. So I'm going to continue to push for that. And I guarantee you, if we were able to do that kind of audit, there would be money available to put into other things, such as Social Security and Medicare. And so that I also see as a very strong part of my job. And we should not still be arguing over whether we should fully fund Social Security and Medicare. It's absurd. Yeah. Yes.
Yes. I have a question.
Yes.
Why is Social Security taxed?
Yeah, and that's a state issue, not a federal issue. But I know that is.
It's also taxed by the federal.
It's also taxed by the federal government in this, but that is true for every. Okay, so let me back up. Are you asking, period, why is it taxed? Yeah, yeah,
We've already paid our taxes.
yes,
We put money into this.
yes,
What did you guys do with that money?
yeah, yeah. No, it's a legitimate question.
You knew we were going to retire at some
That's right. We knew it was coming, right? That's right. That's right. It's an excellent question, and you know, I want to follow up with you afterwards because there's a lot in this time where I'm trying to come up to speed on a whole lot of issues, and I don't understand a lot about that issue. I'll just be perfectly honest. So I will get you an answer, and I will talk to my team in DC about that as well. I appreciate the question. In the back, yes.
Some states don't tax,
That's right.
and I think there's 17 states that don't tax Social Security.
That's right. And Vermont still taxes, which,
Why,
yes,
I would be curious about that.
yes. And so, and that's, I jumped the gun, and I'm sorry that I cut you off. I jumped the gun in saying it was a state issue, but Vermont is one of those few states that still taxes Social Security, and we are going to use, you know, the voice that we have to reach out to our state partners on this, because that's not a change that I can make in Congress. But I certainly have heard that loud and clear. We had a teletown hall for seniors just a few weeks ago, and that was something that was brought up repeatedly. So I will share that with your state reps and senators as well. I'm going to stay right there.
But that would add money to our pockets every month.
Yes.
You know, $50, $20.
And it makes a difference. Yeah. I had a great chair when I first came into the state Senate, and she said, don't ever say before any number only this amount of money, because $10, $20, $25 makes a difference every single week, every single month. So I really appreciate that. We will talk to our state partners. Over here, yes.
Yeah. I mostly, first of all, really want to thank you for getting out here. I think you probably already know this, but I have an example that I'd like
Sure.
to mention. So I get together on Wednesday evenings with a group of people my age who were in my wife's high school graduating class in Watertown, New York.
Okay, a lot of snow in Watertown.
Yeah.
Lot of
A
snow.
whole bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up Montclair, so I'm invited into that group. But my wife and I have been to the state legislature. We did some testimony there about Alzheimer's and dementia,
Yeah.
Which was on YouTube. And they are absolutely astounded that we have that kind of access.
Yeah.
And so I'm thanking you. I mean, I'm amazed that we have this kind of access
Yeah.
here, that you have the time and you're able and willing to be here. So thank you to start with.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the second thing is, my wife did die from complications of Alzheimer's.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that I'd really like to know or get a sense of from you is that you support assistance for caregivers
Mhm.
and people that are dealing with dementia of some sort.
Yes.
It's very, very widespread. I think I think an awful lot of people don't realize how widespread dementia is as people are getting older, and it just makes life really difficult, not just for the victims, but also for the caregivers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a statement and comment.
I really appreciate you mentioning that, because I know that I have people on my own team who are dealing with this right now. And it's heartbreaking, it's exhausting, and as a society, we have to do better about really, one, acknowledging all of the work that is done by caregivers, often in silence. And I know my mom was a caregiver for my grandmother she moved in with us, spent the last few years of her life with us, and saw what a toll it took on my own mom to give my grandmother dignity. And I have heard this from caregivers around the state, that they often feel isolated and lonely and not seen by the society of all of the critically important work that they're doing to give their loved ones dignity and security. And so I am part of a group in Congress right now that's looking at this issue in particular, and I know that there is much more funding needed at the federal level around this. And certainly in New England too, as you know, we have when you look across the country, New England has per capita, more aging members of our populations, and we have to do better about treating people with dignity for the entirety of their lives. And it's one thing that was instilled in me at a very young age from my dad, who was an immigrant, feeling like he loves this country so deeply and is so proud to have built a new life here. And one of the things that he would say to me as a kid, but we as a society in America have not figured out how to show up for our elders, period. I guess I'll just, period. Yeah. So, and Sarah, who's on my legislative team, we can connect, you can connect with her also about what we've got cooking on that front. So, thank you. Yes?
Yes, can people hear me? On a very much larger issue.
Yes?
It appears that there are many people in this country who don't really know how the government is supposed to work. They don't know. I mean, and I think that civics is probably not being taught in schools, so that you could ask somebody, how many houses are there, and yada, yada, yada. And so, do you see this as an issue?
Yes.
And what can be done about
Yes.
it?
So I taught middle school and community college civics essentially, before I was in politics, and I feel very strongly about it. And one of the things that we have learned in earnest in the last few years is that so many folks under 30 are getting most of their news and information from social media. And that is an interesting phenomenon that we still haven't wrestled with. And it makes, I'm going to address that, but I also want to bring in another tangentially related issue that I'm very concerned about, is the spread of disinformation. And it's alarming the speed with which disinformation gets disseminated before anyone has a chance to do any kind of fact check. And that is also having a corrosive impact on our understanding of government and the world. And I see that in real time with my own kids. When they'll bring something, we have very robust conversations at dinner time, and they'll come out with a pronouncement, and I'll say, where are you getting that information? And let's unpack it. I've been concerned about this for a long time, though, before the rise of social media. I used to do a unit with my students. I taught 8th grade for many years, and I used to make my students take the citizenship test. Everybody's going to take it, and they did it individually, and some would pass, some would fail, and the ones that didn't pass, I'd break them up into groups and say, okay, collectively, see if you could pass. And then I'd have them take it home to their parents. It was very, very revealing. And I was very concerned about the change that happened in education under No Child Left Behind. It was an initiative that was supposed to be about making sure that every child, regardless of zip code, would get a comparable education. But what happened which was an unintended consequence of No Child Left Behind, was that there was such an incredible focus on reading and math skills that social studies got very much taken out of the equation, and civics too, because teachers had an incredible amount of pressure on them. It was all driven by testing. And so we're still paying for that, and I came up against it also in the legislature sometimes, because we are a citizen legislature in Vermont, right? We all run from our communities, and I remember serving my first year with a group of people who had brought up at a meeting, well, the judiciary has to take its cuts like any other agency. And I said, no, they're not an agency. They're the third branch of government. And I thought, okay, we got some education to do. But I am concerned. It's one of the bright spots here is I feel like many of us in this freshman class that came in together, we came in post-January 6th. And so we had strong concerns about the health of democracy. And many of my colleagues have gotten very good at doing these sort of mini lessons on civics directly to their constituents. And that is having an impact. And younger people are getting very curious about the things that they don't fully understand. But I think what also is driving this is a real despair about the state of politics today. I've got dear friends who are very well-read who have said to me, I don't listen to the news anymore. I don't read the news anymore. It's killing me to do so, right? It's like, it's depressing, it affects my sleep. And so people are checking out, and I don't blame them, but I worry that too many people are checking out. And so I would love to know if you're obviously thinking about this. What do you think would be helpful to combat this? Yes, I am, or others too. I'm asking you, but I also can open it up because I talk about this with my colleagues all the time. Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea that representatives are taking on the responsibility of communicating some of these things to their constituents.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a really good idea. I don't know how you can battle social media and all the other things too. But is education or any education committees involved with this issue?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have this partisan split right now is basically being driven whole hog through the education committee. And so we are having a big, nationally, a disagreement about what schools should or shouldn't be teaching. But we don't need to get down, that rabbit hole. But I do think that we as representatives have a responsibility to essentially shore up the democracy from the bottom up and making sure that we are giving opportunities within our districts to be talking about these ideas again. What does a healthy democracy look like? Why do we hold so dearly to town meeting? Because we care. Because we want to see each other face to face and wrestle with these things. And I could talk about this all afternoon. But I see someone in the back who had an idea, I think. Yeah.
I just wanted to add to the part about civics and social studies. Another thing is media literacy.
Yes.
Especially in terms of social media. I don't know if you ever read Heather Cox.
I love Heather Cox Richardson.
She had a great column this morning where basically she said the extremist side of the Republican Party is sucking all the oxygen out of the air for media and regular broadcast media as well as social media. So they're just saying, I've had it. I don't want, I'm bummed out enough. I don't need to listen to the news.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge problem.
Yeah, and I think too that I think it's very disheartening to watch good people making bad decisions because of fear of retaliation. And if you doubt that happened, you just have to go back and look at the things that were said during this most recent speaker vote. My colleagues privately would say in the hallway, I know this isn't good for us, it's not good for the democracy, but I can't buck the trend because they're threatening my children. I can't be out in front on this because they're harassing my wife at the local grocery store. And so that takes all of us, right, as a healthy democracy to say, that is not acceptable behavior for the electorate, right? That we have to hold our congressmen and women absolutely accountable for the decisions that they make and the work that they do or don't do, absolutely. But we've gone so far off the rails in terms of the kinds of threats and bullying behavior that good people are being exposed to. And because of that, they can't find their courage or their backbone. They want to. They'll tell you that when the camera's not rolling and they say, what do you want me to do? So that's a piece of it too. And I lost my grandfather in the Holocaust. Fascism is not just an idea for me. It impacted my family directly. And we see, and I don't use that term loosely, but we see signs of it in terms of our inability to hold different political views. And, I would encourage all of us to feel more confident in our ability to say in our communities, this isn't what a healthy democracy looks like. Shouting someone down, at a select board meeting or a school board meeting. Let's talk about difference. Let's wrestle with the hard stuff, but let's not turn ourselves into a society in which we no longer see each other as human beings with differing views. And so it is on us as elected officials, it's on my staff, but I also think as Americans, it's on all of us to turn the tide on this, because I'm very concerned about the road that we're on here. Yes.
I urge everyone to read Rachel Maddow's book about fascism in this country in the 30s and what was happening with the Nazis over here. I bought it for my grandson who's 20. Yeah. And I started reading it and I just can't put it down. She is just wonderful. Much better than her podcast. I mean, her writing is terrific. So that's my comment.
I love it.
Yeah.
I always love good suggestions for reading and for podcasts. And I think, too, the other piece I would say is we have to essentially reward good behavior. And by good behavior, I mean people who are standing firmly in their convictions. I served with a Republican man named Ken Buck. We serve on judiciary together. We disagree on most things, but we agree on antitrust work. We agree on certain things related to the judiciary. And we absolutely believe that we are a nation of laws and the Constitution. And Ken Buck took a whole lot of heat because he said, I will not elect a speaker who denies that President Biden is the rightful president of the United States. And he stuck to it, and he was treated horribly, and he's going to retire from Congress because he can't take the pressure anymore. Yeah. These are the people that get, notes from me. These are the people that I reach out to or send text to say, thank you, thank you, thank you. We don't agree on all these other things, but you and I both believe in the rule of law and the Constitution and the importance of speaking up. We don't do enough of that because we're in our camps, well, he's in the Freedom Caucus. I can't have anything that I can agree with on him. Not true. And I need to tell people when they're doing a good job. We all do. And I thought, yes, down here.
So I'm very concerned about the AI stuff that's coming our way.
Yeah.
Because right now it's hard to figure out what is real and what's disinformation and add that layer to it. So
Yes.
I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I don't know if any of you have been following the news in the last few days about ChatGPT and AI and the collapse of that company right now and what will that mean. The Senate has been a little farther ahead than the House on this issue. They've had hearings over the last month. My weeks are all running together. But really trying to dive into the intricacies of AI and what are the promises of this technology and what are the very scary aspects of it. And I don't think it will surprise any of you to know that many members of Congress, we are not tech experts. And oftentimes the witnesses who come in to testify know more about it than we do, and that is challenging. And so I share your concerns. I have been meeting with numerous partners on this issue, AI in particular, and trying to find a way for us to find common cause across political lines about this, because the technology is so far ahead of us at this point. And I know it's something, I'll give a little shout out to our senior senator. Senator Sanders has been talking about this in earnest for the last year and trying to figure out a way to get it under some semblance of control, but it is concerning. And we had a little fun thing in the office the other day when we put in some inputs and we had them write them. Look at me, there's no them, it's just ChatGPT, it's out there. Writing a poem in a particular style on a particular topic. And there's that piece which can drive creativity. And then there are the lawyers who have gotten in trouble in the last few months for submitting briefs that were created entirely by ChatGPT. Oh, it turns out they miscited things. So we're still playing catch up here. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Is it too early to go overseas a minute? Is it too early in the thing to go overseas?
No. Wherever your questions or comments are taking you, please.
I've had a concern for many years. It seems like it's gotten worse again. But our foreign arms sales and our disproportionate spending on other militaries, which only fuel whatever conflict. I mean, I don't like the idea of a bomb from Ukraine going over that says made in the U.S., and I really don't like it from Israel going over that says that too. There are so many things that we need here in the United States. Infrastructure, hunger things, and the list.
Yes, absolutely.
And overseas, the same kinds of things. We have the money to give to, say, South Sudan, places that our children are literally starving. But where does it go? $1 billion here, $1 billion there, 20 billion, with a stroke sometimes of the executive pen. And I think that thinking has to change. If we need a robust military here, fine. If we paid some mercenary force, but it's not even the principle. We're not helping peace one bit when we do that. And I mean, I suppose you can get some arms dealers mad at you if you advocated that, but we really have to be careful to whom we sell.
I agree.
And in past, and it was because we don't seem to learn anything, every place we've gone, we've left these technologies, we've left dangerous weapons, only to have to come in sometime to have them used against us. And seems like diminishing returns to me.
I understand, and it is something that I know, I share these concerns with both the senators here in Vermont, and we need more robust accountability about where we are selling not just arms, but military technology, period. And we cannot forget that every aid package that we send around the globe has to include robust humanitarian aid. And I think you're speaking to that as well, is that is absolutely entwined in any good that we think that we're doing overseas. And so it is, there are no easy answers here, but I know that you and I are feeling about it the same way. There must be more accountability. There must be more caution used around armaments.
We can't just keep fueling. In the 70s, George McGovern told me of the balance of powers, but we were sending a zillion to Israel. We were sending a zillion to Jordan, and at the time they were both at each other's throats. What good is that?
Right, and it goes back to what Eisenhower warned us about all those years ago.
Yeah.
The real danger is the military-industrial complex, and he was so prescient in so much of what he said.
I think the Chance for Peace speech he gave in 1953 was probably one of his finer hours, even though he didn't really ultimately act on that. But I'd like to see that, the statistics given in that brought forward to our times to see what.
And so just so I don't forget, because I'm a history buff, so you said 53?
Yeah.
Okay, I will look up the speech. Appreciate it.
Well worth reading. You say, wow, this guy's,
Ahead of his time.
Don't look at all the other things we got into, like
Right.
stealing elections or,
Yeah.
or
Right.
going into Indochina.
Right.
And
Yes.
Do you think when you talk to folks in DC that they're talking about issues affecting seniors? Do you think there's some emphasis on issues affecting seniors?
Not enough. Not enough, because if they were having the kind of robust conversation that we're having here, the starting place would not always be, let's cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid by 30%. This is not a haircut, right? This is not trimming off the top. This is fundamentally changing our systems of support. It doesn't come into play here in Vermont because we're all are at large essentially, right? We all have the same district. But the districts in this country have been so gerrymandered that they don't actually, many of my colleagues don't actually have to listen to a broad spectrum of opinion. That is one of the parts that people don't necessarily connect those dots. That if you have gerrymandered your district to be people who are all supposedly singing from the same hymn book, then those issues that are important to folks living on the margins, whether it's people who need SNAP benefits, right? People who need programs to help them get a better paying job, seniors that need support. And so I see these two things as completely intertwined, that the conversation has become so highly distilled in some districts that they don't feel like they need to address the concerns of the whole electorate. But I thought it was very interesting it must have been State of the Union. In the weeks leading up to the State of the Union, the Republicans were once again saying, and again, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be partisan. This is just like the environment that I'm in right now. The loudest voices within the Republican conference had been saying, we got to cut Medicare, we got to cut Social Security. And they didn't like that President Biden highlighted that in the State of the Union. And you can go back and watch it. It's a fascinating moment. It was actually really masterfully done. So anyone who says that Biden's not sharp, just watch that. Because he was masterful in calling it out publicly. All the cameras are there, right? It's live on C-SPAN. All the big news organizations are there. And he says, and my colleagues want to cut, because that's what they've been saying for weeks. But they didn't like that he said it on national TV. And in the moment, they all started catcalling. That's not true. We never said that. That's not true. And so he got his little Cheshire grin on that President Biden gets sometimes. He said, oh, I'm so glad that we're in agreement on this, that we should not be going after Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. It was brilliant. And it was, he he played it so beautifully. Well, let's call out what you're doing, and if you don't really stand behind it, then let's put on national TV right now. But the gerrymandering cannot be overstated and what it has done to this democracy. But there are lots of people on Capitol Hill who do understand that seniors need us to fight for them in all of our committees. They do. And we just need to be louder. Unfortunately, that's the environment we're in. We need to be louder and we need to control the narrative. And I'm gonna, okay, 4 minutes, okay, yes.
Thank you for signing on to universal single payer
Absolutely,
in its current version from Congresswoman Jayapal.
yes.
What is your office doing beyond signing on to the group?
Yeah.
And before you answer that, I'll point out that looking the other day, I think 40 of the signatories, 40% of the signatories are women.
Mhm.
So congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. I don't know if that's congratulating for me for being a woman or for signing on. I'll take it all. Here's the thing. I have said for years that we need to decouple healthcare from employment, period. We saw that in the pandemic so acutely, and we are still struggling with many of our colleagues across the aisle who believe, or at least they say it, whether they believe it is another thing, they will say out loud that if you support single payer, if you support universal health care, you are a socialist and a communist and probably shouldn't be trusted. And that is like, that's the story, that's the narrative right now. And that has taken hold within the Republican conference right now, which is really unfortunate because basic health care absolutely should not be a partisan issue. It just shouldn't. And unfortunately, I have no hope that anything will happen in this Congress. We are looking to 2024. We need to, frankly, we gotta flip some seats and get people in those seats who actually believe that universal health care will benefit all Americans and should benefit all Americans. But we are so trapped right now in this narrative that if you support universal health care, you must be a communist and you should not be trusted because actually you're an enemy of the people. And that is one of the most dangerous things that Trump has done to political conversations. And so I don't want to give you false hope. I don't think anything will happen this session. All of us are working to, when we have some more ability to make change in 2024. Follow up?
Oh, sorry. Who on your team is handling healthcare?
Okay, so we got Jessica, I was looking for, right here. So connect with Jessica. And I saw a hand here.
I just wanted to say thank you for your ceasefire.
Absolutely, you're welcome. You're welcome.
And I
Yes,
have a very quick thing.
yes.
Other than voting, how can we support you?
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. You know, I can't say all the things that I want to say right now about how you can support me because this is an official event, so I won't say those things. But I will tell you this. I would really encourage all of you to see folks in Congress who are doing good work and support them in any way you can. And again, if it's even dropping a note or a line, a postcard. We still love getting snail mail as members of Congress. Somebody saying, I saw that interview you gave. You know, you don't represent me, but keep doing what you're doing. We need positive reinforcement because right now, there isn't a lot of positive reinforcement. There's a lot of ugliness. There's a lot of name calling. There's a lot of, frankly, there are moments when I actually feel frightened for my safety. And so as much as we can flip the ways in which people are interacting with their public officials, that benefits all of us. It really, really does. So last one, yes.
Oh, don't make that answer. This is a yes or no.
Okay.
Are these people in Congress, are they adults?
Well, I taught middle school for a long time, and that prepared me for this position. There are people that I serve with who do not have a seriousness of purpose. They don't. They're not doing it to serve their constituents. They're doing it for fame. They're doing it for something more perverse than fame.
How the hell they get in?
Yeah, gerrymandering. So I don't want to leave on that note, though. Okay, I want to leave on a better note, which is this. Vermont is an amazing place to live. That we can still sit together, have these conversations. Your congresswoman can be here and share lunch and laugh. We laughed a lot over here, and know that I am a person serving you, trying to do my level best. I'm not always going to get it right, but I will continue to work on getting it right. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to embarrass Jessica because I can. I missed Jessica's birthday, and on the Becca Balint team, birthday people get a special birthday greeting from me. And here it goes. My name is Zoom and I live on the moon. I've come down to earth just to sing you this tune. Hey Jessica, it's your birthday today. Wackadoo, wackadoo, wackadoo. Happy birthday, Jessica. Thanks so much for coming out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, that was a treat, a real treat.
Great, thank you.